Welcome back to Kin in Line. I make this part 164. So this is from about 8 years ago, and most South Africans would recognize this detail. It's Table Mountain, or just a section thereof. In fact, the part where the cable car, to which the cable car runs. I did this, I'm not sure from what vantage point, but it's actually the only drawing I've got of that trip in this little sketchbook, because this book is taken up with an interesting part of my career, and that was how I was summarily dismissed. I was a contract worker, having been forced to take early retirement after sub-editing for 22 years at the age of 59. So I managed to get contract work. So I was still working full-time, doing the same job, but getting none of the perks. But eventually they didn't like my politics, so they ousted me. So it was, I thought, an unfair dismissal, so I took them to the CCMA, the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration, in a dingy old place in Main Street, Port Elizabeth, since renamed. And anyway, this was one of the people. As usual, adversity brings out the best in my drawing, I think. So as I sat there waiting for the case, such as it was, I sketched some of the people. This was one of them. I think it's the only one I managed to do before the great encounter. This guy was brought all the way down from head office in Johannesburg to handle their case. That is what I think it was called a VUSA at that point. The owners of the Herald, Sunday Times, etc. are now called something else, Arena, I think. Anyway, across the table from me was this guy. It was quite ironic here. I was having fought all my life against apartheid, having my career determined by two African people. That guy and this guy was the human resources manager on the Herald, who actually gave me my marching orders. So I'd worked my adult life to get rid of apartheid, and then I was sacked essentially by two black people. So that wasn't the end of the saga, unfortunately. I managed to sort of win the case, but I didn't get my job back. Then I went to see if I was entitled to any payments, unemployment insurance benefits, because I'd been paying into the UIF fund all my working life, 32 odd years. So I went early in the morning, middle of winter, queued for hours and hours, sketched a few people like this oak. Again, interesting to be in there, with not thousands, but probably close to 1,000 unemployed people, all desperate for some cash. And yeah, so I drew the people around me, sat on chairs for hours, all quite monotonous, except for the fact that I managed to read the newspaper, do some sketches, and then finally get to the end, which is where this guy's sitting at a chair. He's finally reached somebody to speak to. And when I got to that point, I was told to come back in a month or something, week. They would get all my information together. So that couldn't just be done quickly. You had to queue for 3 hours. So anyway, I came back a week later and was told that the company hadn't been paying UIF my portion. So I had to then challenge them again and manage to get them to cough up a little bit of cash. But, what can can you do? That's not how one wants your career to end. Anyway, this was Pollock Beach again, with that same little, still can't think of the name, post, signpost, signal post, something like that. And just a nice stretch of beach here. Yeah, I hauled out an inadequate pencil. It wasn't a nice 6B or 8B or something. But it enabled me to do this drawing of people sitting around at Pollock on a boardwalk that has subsequently fallen into total disrepair. This must have been when I went back to the Labour Department. Sat with my fellow struggling unemployed people. Yeah, this was my probably my first or second visit to the department. Also in Main Street. So these would probably benefit from a bit of colour, but yeah, I haven't brought myself around to doing that yet. I think that's it for this little book. Okay, so as I said, my sketch pads do follow me around all over the world. And this, would you believe, is Queensland, Australia. So we went over for my wife's my brother-in-law's 50th in 2016, and flew from Brisbane, where he lives, to what's this island's name? It'll come to me. Anyway, it's a little island off the coast, off the east coast of Australia, still in Queensland, quite near the Great Barrier Reef. And we had a lovely sort of house that we rented, a whole group of us. And this was the view from the window, right over this big bay. And up the one end of the island, this was the highest point to which we walked we were there for about a week. Hamilton Island, yeah, that's the name. Yeah, so this long balcony and overlooking this beautiful view of a bay below. One evening we were sitting out there and these fruit bats came past. I remember it was a full moon, absolute one of those super moons, whatever they call them. And these bats just flew past. Weird, thousands of them. It was incredible. You know, this was one of the people, a friend of my brother-in-law's from Hong Kong. He joined us, him and his wife. And here he's sitting on a kind of deck chair thing with his reading something on his little device. So he was British expat. And then also in my wife's family, back onto that farm in the Karoo, and this is a group of ladies sitting around chatting in the yard, on the lawn. I think there's a little cat down below there, as usual. So what do you think? Well, I'm not sure. I think definitely is. He's drawing us, I'm pretty convinced he is. Nah, can't be. Definitely, he is. And then the inevitable climb up one of the mountains for this view of, teebus and koffiebus. Again, I should be colouring these nicely. This I mentioned earlier, we visited Somerset East, and we did quite a long hike. I think this was there, this might have been when we went to Zeeburg. Yeah, I think this was down from the bottom of a long hike through the Zeeburg Mountains. And this on one of our many trips. I don't know, maybe this is on the beach or... It could have been when I went to watch my son Doug do some climbing at an indoor gym. No, it's not. Because here we've got, I don't know, 2 seated women now. Maybe they were seated at the climbing gym, seated on the floor. These could be climbers. Yeah, that actually rings a bell. Anyway, with our one son moving to Cape Town, we visited him one summer, about 4 years ago, and visited Muizenberg Beach, where I managed to do this drawing in pencil. Again, I think I could safely colour this and bring it out more. But you're getting a first look at it. Maybe it'll crop up again. And that's a lovely range of mountains down the flank of Muizenberg out towards Cape Point. Because it is a bit pale. Again, I didn't have a nice pencil until I switched to very bold charcoal, and those didn't really work too well. Yeah, looks as though that's all I had time for. So let's leave it with this half-baked drawing. And till next time, cheers.